about to get paid. And one aspect of that could really impact the Indiana Fever. First of all, let's just talk about the salaries in general for the WNBA under this new CBA. You have a huge jump. I mean, the word for WNBA CBA has been transformative. Well, that's because the new minimum is bigger than the old maximum, right? The old max, which was like $250,000.
Look at those numbers. The old maximum salary was $250,000. The new supermax, $1.4 million. That's not a raise. It's a complete transformation of the economic landscape in women's basketball. And while everyone's celebrating this historic win for WNBA players, there's a problem brewing in Indiana that nobody's talking about.
Over 100 players are free agents. These new contracts are about to get, thrown around like Oprah hands out cars. So congratulations to the WNBA players on that raise. And it affects the pay of everybody because things get scaled up. But there are specific players in particular who it could increase their pay significantly much more quickly. That includes Caitlin Clark.
Over 100 players are about to hit free agency. Teams are going to be throwing around contracts like Oprah hands out cars, and the Indiana Fever, the team that just sold out every home game and generated more buzz than any franchise in league history, is about to face an impossible math problem. Because when you have multiple max-eligible players on the same roster, and a salary cap of only $7 million, something's got to give. Here's what makes Indiana's situation unique. Most teams don't have this problem yet, but the Fever have two players who made all WNBA teams while still on rookie contracts, Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark. And under the new CBA rules, that triggers early max eligibility.
WNBA honors on their rookie deals. So that includes Aaliyah Boston and it includes Caitlin Clark. So AB is max eligible now. When the Fever had her under a rookie contract, they had Clark and Boston under rookie contracts. Their advantage is that they're not free agents, that those two are locked up. But now Boston is max eligible this year. Caitlin Clark, max eligible next year. On top of that, the rookie scale
Let's break down exactly what just changed. Aaliyah Boston is max eligible right now, not next year, not in 2 years, right now. She can command $1.3 million immediately. Caitlin Clark becomes max eligible after next season because she made all WNBA first team in her rookie year. That's the provision everyone's missing, and this isn't just about those two. Kelsey Mitchell, who had the highest base salary on the team last year at $250,000, is hitting free agency. She's going to get max money on the open market. Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hull are both free agents who performed well above average salary levels. The average WNBA salary just jumped from $120,000 to $600,000. These aren't minimum salary players anymore.
As a whole, these are basically the numbers. The max salary jumps to over $1 million. Kelsey Mitchell had the highest base salary amongst players last year. Like I said, $250K. The super max is 1.4. I think the max is roughly 1.3. The average salary goes up 5 times. So from 120,000 to 600,000. So, just the average player that you're fitting under your cap. And then the minimum salary, I think it's 270 for rookies and about 300 for vets.
Here's where the math gets brutal. The salary cap for year 1 is $7 million. Aaliyah Boston at max salary, minus $1.3 million. Kelsey Mitchell at max salary, minus $1.3 million. That's $2.6 million right there. Add Caitlin Clark at her new rookie scale salary of $530,000, and you're at $3.1 million. That's nearly half the cap consumed by 3 players, but it gets worse next year. When Clark becomes max eligible in 2027, her salary jumps from $530,000 to $1.3 million. So now you're looking at Boston, Mitchell, and Clark combining for $3.9 million. That leaves $3.1 million to fill out the remaining 9 roster spots.
2025, that number is going to jump to $530 in 2026. So much closer to the average salary. Still a bargain deal, still an absolute bargain deal. But she gets to the max of $1.3 million in 2027. And then the Supermax in 2028. But that's with Boston hitting max eligibility right now, right? Like max eligibility right now. So, I mean, you just do that math, right? So you take Boston at 1.3, and then let's say it's Kelsey at 1.3. All of a sudden, you're close to 3 million.
Think about what that means for someone like Lexi Hull. She's not a max player, but she's definitely not an average player either. The average salary is $600,000, the max is $1.3 million. If you're Lexi Hull's agent, you're asking for somewhere around $800,000, that's completely reasonable, given her production and her chemistry with Clark. Same with Sophie Cunningham, she came over and immediately fit into the system, her shooting opened up the floor, and her defense was crucial in playoff games. She's not taking $600,000 when the average player makes that much, she's asking for $800,000 minimum. So, let's do the math. Boston at $1.3 million, Mitchell at $1.3 million, Clark at $530,000, that's $3.1 million. Add Lexi Hull at $800,000, and you're at $3.9 million. Add Sophie Cunningham at $800,000, now you're at $4.7 million. You have $2.3 million left to fill 8 roster spots. The minimum salary is $300,000, that's $2.4 million for 8 players at minimum contracts. You're already over the cap, and you haven't signed a single backup or depth piece, you know.
Look at here's the Kelsey, Caitlin, and Aaliyah would be $3.2 million of cap space. That would leave them at 3.7 to fill out the remaining roster. So if you're Lexi Hull and you're Sophie Cunningham, right? Like those are not average players. They're, they're not max players, but they're not average players. So if the average is right around $600,000, and the max is 1.3, what are you asking for if you're so?
And this doesn't even account for who the Fever might want to target in free agency. Remember Team USA? Remember how well Caitlin Clark connected with players like Ray Burrell and Monique Billings during training camp? Those relationships matter, chemistry matters. But there's no money to pursue anyone, there's barely enough money to keep the core together. The Fever went from having one of the biggest competitive advantages in the league, 2 superstars locked up on cheap rookie contracts, to having one of the tightest cap situations in the entire WNBA, and it happened overnight.
At 300,000. Not necessarily tenable. So Clark and Boston are the pillars. Keeping Kelsey Mitchell long term has gotten significantly more difficult for the Fever under this structure. I need more time to digest and actually do all the math and mix it up with the salary cap. And I would say keeping both Lexi Hull and Sophie Cunningham has just gotten more difficult in the short term for the Indiana Fever as well. And this is not an Indiana Fever alone situation. This applies to all players and all.
Now, there's a wrinkle here with the core designation. Under the old rules, Kelsey Mitchell wouldn't be core eligible going forward because of her contract situation. But the new CBA has a grandfathering provision that might allow Indiana to use it in the short term. That could buy them one more year with Mitchell before she hits unrestricted free agency, but that's just delaying the inevitable. Eventually, you have to make a choice. Do you pay Kelsey Mitchell max money when you know Caitlin Clark is going to command a supermax in 2 years? Do you let a proven veteran walk so you can afford to keep your young core together? These are the decisions that define franchises.
It seemed like an Indiana Fever thing because their rookies were so good. So what was a tremendous advantage, having Clark and Boston locked up on rookie deals, is now still an advantage because they're not free agents. They're not hitting the market. Though I think a lot of the star players are going to stay where they are, especially the big star players. Asia Wilson has already indicated she's going to sign the Supermax with Las Vegas. But it's not the advantage it once was because the max are coming quicker.
The only other player in the league facing the same situation is Paige Buchers. She made All-WNBA second team in her rookie season with Dallas, which triggers the same early max eligibility provision. So, the Wings are going to deal with this too, but they don't have another max-eligible player already on the roster like Indiana does with Boston. this is the unintended consequence of having rookies so good that they make all WNBA teams immediately. It compresses your championship window, because you can't keep everyone together under the cap. The advantage of having them locked up on rookie deals disappears when those rookie deals suddenly pay near max money.
I mean, what's 7 million divided by 12? I should have done this math before I went on, but I wanted to get you guys the info. That's, so that's the average salary. It works out. I mean, I guess that's why it works out that way. So the average salary, but every salary that you put in that's above the average makes it harder to fit other quality players under that cap. And the Fever have several players worthy of the max. 2 right now, 1 coming, and Caitlin Clark is worthy of it right now too, but just isn't eligible. And then several players who are above average, not to mention who they might want to target on the market. So this free agency period is going to be a frenzy.
Let's talk about what this means for the Fever's championship aspirations. They were 1 game away from the WNBA Finals in Clark's rookie season. The expectation is that this team gets better, not worse. But how do you improve when you can't afford to add talent? How do you build depth when your top 3 players consume more than half the salary cap? Championship teams need more than 3 stars. They need quality role players who can step up in big moments. They need veterans who understand playoff basketball. They need depth to survive injuries and manage minutes during a long season. The Fever might not be able to afford any of that. They might be forced to fill out the roster with minimum salary players and hope for the best. That's not a recipe for sustained success, that's hoping to catch lightning in a bottle before the window slams shut. And here's the really uncomfortable question nobody wants to ask: what if keeping Kelsey Mitchell isn't the right move? What if the smart play is to let her walk in free agency, use that cap space to build a deeper roster around Clark and Boston, and accept 1 year of being worse to set up 3 years of being better? Because if you pay Mitchell max money now, and then Clark gets the supermax in 2 years, you're looking at 2 players consuming nearly half the cap by themselves. Boston's already taking another chunk, you're left with scraps to build around 3 stars. And in a league where depth matters more than ever, that's a dangerous gamble. But if you let Mitchell go, you're telling the best player in franchise history, the woman who stuck with this team through the worst years, that her loyalty doesn't matter. You're telling Caitlin Clark that the team isn't willing to pay to keep winning players around her. You're sending a message to free agents that Indiana will develop you and then let you walk when it's time to pay up. There's no good answer here. Every choice has consequences. Every decision creates problems down the line. This is what happens when the salary cap doesn't scale with revenue fast enough. The players absolutely deserve these raises. The new CBA is transformative and necessary, but the salary cap structure creates an environment where teams are punished for drafting too well. Think about the position this puts the Fever front office in. They've done everything right. They tanked properly and got the number 1 pick. They drafted Aaliyah Boston, who immediately became a top 15 player in the league. They got lucky in the lottery again and landed Caitlin Clark, who became the biggest star in women's basketball. They built a culture that players want to be part of. They filled the arena every night. They generated more media coverage than the league has ever seen. And now they're being told they can't afford to keep the team together. They're being told that success comes with a penalty. They're being told to make impossible choices between stars who all deserve to be paid. Compare this to what Las Vegas is dealing with. Aya Wilson is signing the Supermax, but the Aces don't have multiple other max-eligible players on rookie contracts. They can structure their roster around 1 Supermax player and fill in the gaps. Indiana doesn't have that luxury. They have 3 max-level players who all became eligible within 2 years of each other. The timing couldn't be worse. If Boston had been drafted 1 year later, or if Clark had been drafted 1 year earlier, they'd have more time to figure this out. But instead, they're facing a cap crunch immediately, right when the championship window is opening, and let's not forget about the rookie salary scale increase. Caitlin Clark made $78,000 in 2025. That jumps to $530,000 in 2026. That's still a bargain compared to her value, but it's a significant cap hit compared to what they were paying her. Every dollar matters when you're trying to fit this puzzle together. So, what's the solution? The Fever could try to convince players to take slightly less than max money for the good of the team, but that's asking players to leave money on the table in a league where careers are short and earning windows are limited. That's asking them to sacrifice when they've already sacrificed for years under the old CBA. They could try to get creative with contract structures, backloading deals, or using incentives to manage the cap, but there's only so much you can do within the CBA rules. The cap is the cap. The math is the math. They could trade one of the stars, but that's franchise suicide. You don't trade Caitlin Clark or Aaliyah Boston. You don't trade the players who just sold out your arena and made your team relevant for the first time in years. That's how you lose your fan base overnight, the most likely scenario. They keep Clark and Boston no matter what. Those two are untouchable, they're the foundation of everything. But Kelsey Mitchell probably walks. Lexi Hull probably walks. Sophie Cunningham probably walks. They fill the roster with minimum salary players and hope they can develop young talent fast enough to stay competitive. It's not ideal. It's not what fans want to hear, but it might be the only financially viable path forward. And that's the harsh reality of the new WNBA economics. The players are getting paid, they deserve every dollar, but the salary cap structure means that teams can't keep everyone. Somebody's going to be left out. Somebody's going to be the cautionary tale of what happens when you draft too well in too short a time frame. The Indiana Fever are about to become that cautionary tale, and there's nothing they can do about it except make the least bad choice and hope it works out. Because in 2 years, when Caitlin Clark is making $1.4 million and Aaliyah Boston is still making $1.3 million, they're going to need every dollar of cap space they can find. The decisions they make this offseason will determine whether they have a championship roster, or just 2 stars and a bunch of minimum salary players hoping to compete. So, when you watch this free agency period unfold, when you see players signing massive contracts and celebrating their new financial security, remember the Indiana Fever. Remember that every team facing these decisions is making impossible choices. Remember that the salary cap isn't just a number, it's the difference between keeping a championship core together and watching it dissolve because the math doesn't work. The WNBA just transformed its economic model. Players are getting paid like never before. But the teams that built those players into stars? They're about to find out that success comes with a price tag they might not be able to afford.